think about a company that is just, absolutely crushing it.
Right.
Like they have the product, they have the market fit, the capital's there, everything. And if you ask most people why a company like that suddenly stalls out, the assumption is almost always some dramatic failure.
Yeah, a massive explosion.
Exactly, like a high-performance engine that just runs completely out of gas. You look at the gauge, it's on empty, and the mechanic points to it and says, well, there's your problem.
It's a really appealing narrative, honestly, because it's binary, you know? You either have the ambition to keep moving or you just don't.
Right.
But, I mean, anyone who has actually been in the trenches of a rapidly scaling organization knows that's almost never what happens.
Totally. When you look at the day-to-day operations of a growing company, that whole gas tank metaphor, it just completely falls apart.
It really
You aren't running out of fuel.
Yeah.
You're actually driving through a landscape that is just full of invisible drag, which brings us to today's deep dive. If you are the kind of learner who wants to bypass all that corporate noise and understand the actual mechanics of why businesses succeed or stall out, you are in the right place.
Absolutely.
Because every month, we dissect the insights from Red Hawk Technology's newest issue of their Streamline and Scale newsletter. And today, we are analyzing Volume 2, Issue 9. It's titled Scaling Leadership, Systems, and Influence.
And, this issue carries some extra weight, I think, because it marks Red Hawk's 18th birthday.
Wow, 18.
Yeah, 18 years. 18 years of designing and building software means they have spent nearly 2 decades just watching companies attempt to scale.
That's a lot of data.
Exactly. They've seen exactly what works and, honestly, more importantly, what breaks.
18 years in the tech space is practically a century of data.
Right.
And that observational history leads right into the core thesis of this issue from their CEO, Matt Strippelhoff. It's this beautifully counterintuitive premise.
Yeah, it really is.
He says, growth rarely stalls because a company lacks ambition. It stalls because of friction. Okay, let's unpack this.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, friction is really the silent killer of momentum. When a company is small, brute force and sheer willpower can overcome inefficient systems or communication gaps.
You just work through the weekend?
Exactly. You just push through. But as you add headcount, revenue, complexity, all those tiny inefficiencies, they compound. And Matt's newsletter identifies how this friction embeds itself in 3 main areas: your legacy tech, your executive leadership dynamics, and your organizational culture.
Let's start with the tech side because, well, the newsletter highlights a case study that I think is incredibly common.
Oh, yeah, so common.
They were working with a commercial construction firm, right? And this firm was trying to scale up to handle massive, really complex project bids.
Right.
But their entire operational backbone, like their whole estimating process, was running on a legacy Microsoft Access application.
Which is just a classic growth trap. Desktop databases like Access, they are phenomenal for early-stage companies.
Sure. They get you off the ground.
Exactly. They're accessible, they're easy to set up, and they get the job done when you have, a couple of people managing the data. But they are fundamentally not designed for enterprise-level scale.
Right. And I think we need to understand why they break, rather than just knowing that they do.
Yeah, the mechanics matter.
So I look at a legacy database, kind of like a massive Jenga tower. Or actually, maybe a single-lane toll booth on a highway is a better analogy.
The toll booth is a great way to picture it.
Right, because when traffic is light, it works perfectly. One car pulls up, pays the toll, and moves on.
Smooth sailing.
But when you suddenly have a fleet of commercial trucks, or in this case, a whole team of estimators trying to process complex real-time data simultaneously, everyone is forced into that exact same single lane.
That is a highly accurate way to look at it. Technically speaking, desktop databases often rely on file-level locking.
Which means what exactly?
It means when one user is writing to the database, it literally locks the file to prevent data corruption.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So if another estimator tries to update a massive project bid at the exact same moment, they get locked out. Or worse, the whole system just crashes.
That's a nightmare for productivity.
It is. Plus, as the historical data grows, you run into severe database bloat. You are dealing with sluggish queries, constant instability.
So you have to upgrade.
Right. You need to move from that single-lane toll booth to an open cloud highway with automated transponders, where hundreds of users can process data concurrently without ever slowing down.
I see the logic there, absolutely. Yep. But let's look at the alternatives a leadership team faces when they hit this wall.
Okay.
If the old system is a bottleneck, the immediate instinct is usually to just go out and buy a commercial off-the-shelf software package, right?
Naturally.
Or if they have the budget, to just hire an engineering team to immediately start writing code for a brand new custom system.
Yeah.
I mean, why linger in the friction?
Well, because rushing the solution usually creates a much, much more expensive problem.
Okay, how so?
What's fascinating here is Red Hawk's underlying philosophy is validate before you build.
Validate before you build.
Yes. To address the off-the-shelf option first, you have to realize that highly specialized firms like this commercial construction company, they have unique proprietary processes.
Right, that's their secret sauce.
Exactly. That is their competitive advantage. Commercial software forces you to change your operations to fit their generic workflows.
So you're losing the very thing that makes you good,
You end up paying for a system that actively dilutes your edge.
which leaves custom development. But jumping straight into coding is essentially like discovering your requirements while you are spending your absolute most expensive engineering dollars.
It's terrifying financially.
It's like pouring a concrete foundation before you've even finalized the blueprints for the house.
Precisely. And the traditional method relies really heavily on abstract documentation. You write up a massive product requirements document, a PRD, right? You hand it to the stakeholders and ask them to sign off on a list of text-based features.
Which nobody really reads.
Or they read it, but human beings are just terrible at visualizing complex software from a text document.
Fair point.
So Red Hawk shifts the paradigm. Instead of writing production code, they utilize an AI-first software development lifecycle to rapidly build a high-fidelity, clickable prototype.
Okay, I want to dig into that term, AI-first software development lifecycle, because it is so easy to just throw AI around as a buzzword right now.
Well, for sure. It's everywhere.
What are they actually doing differently here?
Well, in a traditional model, building a functional prototype takes weeks or even months, because developers have to manually write all the boilerplate code, configure the environments, wire up the basic logic just to get something on the screen.
Right, lots of manual setup.
Yeah. But an AI-first SDLC changes the physics of that timeline. They are using advanced language models and AI coding assistants to instantly generate that foundational boilerplate.
Instantly.
Pretty much. The AI scaffolds the database schema, it creates the basic UI components, automates the initial testing loops.
That's wild.
And because of that, the human engineers are freed up to focus entirely on the complex business logic and the actual user experience.
So they aren't just typing faster. They are bypassing the manual labor of initial setup entirely.
Exactly. And because of that acceleration, they can rapidly generate a prototype that simulates a modern cloud-based web application.
So it feels real.
Very real. In this specific case, they designed the architecture using React on the front end and Microsoft SQL Server on Azure for the back end.
And this prototype isn't just a wireframe, right? It simulates the actual future experience.
Yeah, the estimators can click the button, see how the data routes, and really experience the workflow.
There's a quote from the client in the sources after they interacted with this prototype, and it said, Red Hawk had done more in a few days than our previous partner did in 4.5 years.
It is a staggering compression of time.
4.5 years.
I know, and it points to the ultimate strategic advantage here. You are moving the risk to the front of the timeline.
Right.
By interacting with a high-fidelity prototype, you are validating the PRD through actual usage. You discover the missing features and the UX flaws before you commit massive capital to full-scale engineering.
Clarity before code.
Exactly.
You find the friction in a low-cost sandbox rather than a high-cost production environment.
Yep.
But, well, that brings us to a really critical transition, because you can design the most elegant React architecture in the world, and you can validate it perfectly.
But if the CFO says no.
Right. If the CFO doesn't sign off on the capital expenditure, it's just a fun science experiment. Which brings us to the second friction point, executive leadership and CIO influence.
This is where the friction shifts from systems to interpersonal dynamics.
Yeah.
The sources cite a statistic from Gartner that highlights just how deep this disconnect goes. They found that only 18% of IT teams tailor their message to their audience and their channel.
18%. That is wildly low.
It's alarming.
It means over 80% of IT leaders are walking into the boardroom and speaking a completely different language than the people holding the budget.
Completely different.
The CIO is talking about API integrations and server loads and technical debt. Meanwhile, The executive suite is evaluating the business through entirely different lenses.
And if you don't understand those lenses, your initiative is just dead on arrival.
Right.
Executives do not invest in technology, they invest in business outcomes.
That's a great distinction.
The CFO is scrutinizing the proposal for predictability, cost reduction, and ROI. The CMO is looking at it and asking, how does this accelerate growth or improve the customer experience?
And the risk officer.
The chief risk officer is analyzing it for compliance, resilience, security. They all have different mandates.
So if a CIO just presents a slide deck about migrating to an Azure cloud environment, everyone just tunes out.
Glazed eyes everywhere.
But if they tailor that exact same project, telling the CFO it transitions them from unpredictable capital expenses to predictable operational expenses.
Now they're listening.
Right, and telling the CMO it will speed up client onboarding by 40%. And telling the risk officer it implements enterprise-grade data encryption. Now, the project is perfectly aligned with their individual mandates.
Exactly. But tailoring the message is really only half the battle.
What's the other half?
The other half is the medium of delivery. This is where we see the severe limitations of the traditional PowerPoint presentation.
Oh, death by PowerPoint.
Yeah. Slide decks inform, sure, but they rely on the executive's imagination to bridge the gap between abstract tech concepts and tangible business value.
And imagination is risky.
Very. Conversations persuade, but showing the future always beats describing it.
Here's where it gets really interesting, I think, because the sources connect this communication problem directly back to the solution from our first segment.
The prototypes.
Yes. We typically think of a prototype purely as a tool for software developers to test functionality. But Red Hawk positions it as a strategic asset for IT leadership.
What's fascinating here is it raises an important question. What is the fastest way to remove ambiguity in a boardroom?
Show them.
Right. If you are a CIO asking for a significant budget, handing the CEO an iPad with a high-fidelity prototype completely changes the dynamic of that meeting.
Because you aren't asking them to visualize a new estimating workflow based on bullet points.
You are letting them touch it.
It transforms the initiative from an abstract cost center request into a tangible strategic business asset.
Yes.
The executive team can immediately see the scope, the impact, the value, without requiring months of financial analysis to justify it.
And for the CIO or any IT leader listening to this, this is how you build what the newsletter calls reputation capital.
Reputation capital. I like that.
When you consistently communicate in outcomes and use tangible tools like prototypes to de-risk investments, you elevate your standing within the company.
You stop being viewed as just the operational leader who keeps the servers running.
Exactly. You become a strategic partner who earns a seat at the table before the company's strategies are finalized.
And when the C-suite implicitly trusts the IT leadership, the friction of getting approval just vanishes. Decisions happen in days instead of quarters.
That's the dream.
Okay, so let's walk through the timeline. We've validated a highly scalable, cloud-based architecture.
Check.
We've successfully communicated the business outcomes to the executive team, and the initiative is fully funded. The engine is primed.
Ready to go.
But to actually build and execute this vision, the company has to rapidly scale its headcount. You might need to double or triple your engineering and operational teams.
And this is where the final and arguably the most insidious friction point breaks companies' organizational culture.
Yeah, let's get into this.
This is the ultimate stress test of a scaling business. You have the technology, you have the capital, but do you have the behavioral infrastructure to support the weight of that rapid growth?
The behavioral infrastructure.
Yeah. Matt Strippelhoff dedicates a significant portion of this newsletter to this exact problem. He makes a really vital distinction between implicit culture and intentional culture.
Let's break down implicit culture first, because I think in the early days of a startup, when you maybe have, 10 or 15 people, culture is almost entirely implicit.
It's just in the air.
Right. It functions purely through proximity. Everyone's in the exact same room. The junior developers hear how the founder talks to an angry client on the phone.
They see the reactions.
Exactly. The team sees exactly how leadership reacts to a missed deadline or a massive bug in the code. You don't need an employee handbook because everyone just absorbs the behavioral standards by being within 10 feet of the founders.
It's highly effective, but it is fundamentally unscalable.
Because you can't clone the founder.
Right. The friction occurs when a company hits that 50, 100, or 200 employee mark. Proximity is completely gone. You have new middle managers making decisions and new hires who have never even met the original founding team.
And if the culture remains implicit, it just begins to silently erode.
It does.
It reminds me of a legendary family recipe that is kept entirely in a grandparent's head.
Oh, that's a good comparison.
It is absolutely phenomenal when they make it in their own kitchen because they know exactly how a pinch of salt feels
Right.
or when the sauce looks right.
Yeah, it's instinct.
But if you try to open a chain of 50 restaurants and just tell the new cooks, hey, make it taste like the original, the results will be disastrous.
Oh.
The implicit knowledge hasn't been codified into an intentional system.
Exactly.
But the challenge is, how do you actually codify it? Every single company has their core values printed on a frosted glass wall in the lobby, right?
Always.
Red Hawk lists theirs as empathy, integrity, creativity, transparency, and collaboration. Those are excellent words. But words on a wall don't scale a culture.
No, they don't. And this is where Matt's perspective provides a practical blueprint. He argues that culture is an operating system, not a marketing poster.
An operating system.
Yes, for those core values to survive scale, they have to be weaponized into actual operational filters. They must become the explicit criteria for how you hire, how you scope client work, and perhaps most importantly, how you handle promotions.
The section on promotions is a massive aha moment. The newsletter describes every promotion within a company as a cultural broadcast.
I love that phrase. If you think about the psychology of an organization, employees are constantly looking for signals about what the company actually values.
Regardless of what the handbook says.
Right, regardless of the handbook, when leadership elevates someone into a new role, it sends a booming, unignorable message to the entire staff about what behaviors are rewarded.
Right. You can have the word collaboration etched in stone in the lobby, but if you promote a top performer who chronically hoards information or refuses to mentor junior staff,
Or throws teammates under the bus just because they hit their revenue targets.
yes, you have just broadcasted your real culture. You've told everyone, hey, the core values are a lie. Individual revenue is the only metric that matters.
And the damage is done.
You aren't just rewarding one person. You are recalibrating the internal compass of every single other employee.
Conversely, if you use values like empathy and integrity as strict, non-negotiable filters for who gets to lead, you are actively designing your culture for scale.
It's intentional.
You are ensuring that when the founder isn't in the room to make a decision, the new manager who is in the room is using the exact same behavioral recipe.
Which brings up a fascinating tension in the tech world. Because there is this pervasive myth, kind of born out of the move fast and break things era of Silicon Valley, that operational discipline and strict cultural processes actively kill creativity.
Oh yeah, the idea that you need chaos to be innovative.
Exactly. The assumption is that to be truly innovative, you need this chaotic, unstructured, free-flowing environment.
It's a very romanticized view of startups, but the reality is that ambiguity scales very poorly.
Tell me more about that.
Well, when a company lacks clear standards, when nobody knows exactly who is accountable for a deliverable or what the delivery frameworks are, teams just get paralyzed by confusion.
They don't know what to do.
Right. They spend 60% of their energy just trying to navigate internal politics and figure out how to work together.
They are burning fuel, just spinning their tires in the mud.
Exactly. By implementing operational discipline, transparent metrics, clear behavioral expectations, codified delivery frameworks, you aren't stifling creativity.
You're enabling it.
Yes, you are creating the necessary guardrails that allow teams to safely apply their creativity. When the rules of engagement are clear, they can dedicate 100% of their cognitive energy to solving complex client problems and building innovative features.
That makes perfect sense. And Red Hawk has clearly pressure-tested this philosophy, given their multiple Inc. 5,000 awards for rapid growth.
Yeah, those speak for themselves.
But Matt makes a crucial point in the newsletter. Those awards are just lagging indicators. The actual work, the willingness to have hard conversations, the discipline to pass on a lucrative client because they violate your core values, the decision to hold back a promotion, that work happened months or years before any award was handed out.
It's the unseen foundation.
Exactly. If you design it intentionally, growth doesn't dilute your culture, it amplifies it.
That is the ultimate goal of scaling. When your technology architecture, your executive communication, and your behavioral infrastructure evolve in sync, momentum compounds instead of fragments.
So what does this all mean?
Yeah, let's synthesize it.
Let's bring this home for you, the listener. Whether you are an IT leader prepping for a massive budget meeting, a founder trying to manage a rapidly growing headcount, or just someone trying to understand why certain businesses thrive while others plateau, the through line is intentional design.
Absolutely.
You have to actively hunt down and remove the invisible friction across your organization.
If we synthesize the roadmap from this issue, it really comes down to three things. First, validate your systems before you write production code. Move the financial and operational risk to the front of the timeline by utilizing AI-accelerated high-fidelity prototypes.
Clarity before code.
Second, to earn influence and secure funding, stop relying on technical jargon and abstract slide decks. Speak the language of business outcomes and use interactive tools to provide immediate clarity to the C-suite.
Outcomes, not features.
And third, treat your culture like operational infrastructure. Codify your implicit standards and ensure your permissions broadcast the behaviors you actually want to scale.
It is a phenomenal blueprint for removing drag. But before we wrap up today, I have to mention a teaser found at the very end of Red Hawk's newsletter.
Oh, yes. The preview for next month.
They gave a brief preview of what they are tackling in their next issue, and it introduces a fascinating new variable. They claim that as you scale, your most critical asset isn't your scalable software architecture.
Nope.
It isn't your platform. It isn't even your shiny new AI strategy.
It is your data.
Exactly. Your data. And that leaves us with a provocative thought to mull over until next time.
Think about it.
Think about the organization you work in right now. Let's say you've executed everything perfectly. You've migrated off legacy systems, you perfectly scaled your tech without friction, you've mastered C-suite communication, and you've built an ironclad intentional culture.
The dream scenario.
Right. But is your raw data actually clean, structured, and ready to be the high-octane fuel for that finely tuned machine? Or beneath the surface of all that perfect infrastructure, is your data secretly a chaotic liability just waiting to trip you up and stall the engine all over again?
It is the inevitable next hurdle for any scaling organization. And the complexity of unstructured data is something that catches a lot of brilliant leadership teams completely off guard.
We will definitely be diving into the mechanics of that data dilemma next month when the new issue drops. But for now, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep looking for the invisible friction in your own workflows, keep questioning the systems around you, and we will see you next time.